It's Mike Bear with Free Speech Media. I'm here in Streetsville, Ontario, and I'm here with Felix Schuster. Go ahead, Felix. The mic is yours. Tell us what you'd like people to know.
So, I came to Canada in 1980 as an immigrant from the Soviet Union, from Moscow, actually, and it was my strong decision to go to Canada because I felt that coming from the Soviet Union to Canada would be much closer to what we actually experienced in the Soviet Union than going to United States, because our propaganda in Soviet Union was saying that United States is a criminal haven. Okay, so you come to the street and you will be probably mugged and killed or something like that. So of course Calgary has become a place for me to settle for the first 10 years. Now, it was happy 10 years in Calgary. Then I moved to Toronto as a programmer, analyst, and so on and so forth. But the idea behind that, we lived in Canada as a happy family, and we enjoyed that. And that is something that we experienced in totally different in the last year and a half. Okay, so now, speaking about what we see something that's switching this country of great development of the so-called democratic society based on a capitalism into something that much closer to what was in the Soviet Union, much closer, in a way that lots of things right now are visible signs of it. And I'm actually interested in the history of any country, and I know history of country that I came from as well as history of Canada. I spent quite a lot of time learning, and I see a lot of similarities that are happening right now. Okay, some people say, and this is some people in my family, our younger generation in our family say that socialism will never come to Canada because Canada doesn't have that many poor people. And I tell to our daughter that as this will progress, whatever it is happening right now, we will have a lot more poor people, because all the middle class people right now will become poor within a very short period of time. Some of them already experiencing that, no income. Now, the interesting part of that is once that happens, it will become much more easier to government to control these people, because once you're poor and you live on support from the government, you're dependent on that. You have to do what the government tells you to do. Now, we believe that the government is actually government of people elected by people, to actually serve the government, serve the people of the country. And this is not happening right now, because they don't serve us anymore. Okay, they act as a dictatorial rather organization. Okay, and they use, in terms of that, they use their repressive organizations, meaning police. Right now, it is obvious that they are switching the action of police from serve and protect people to actually prevent people from actually saying their opinion, their words. Okay, it's not anymore. Okay, and simple by doing that is very interesting. Is that we observing that some march of protest in city of Toronto is now being directed by government to actually being dissipated at any case in any way. Okay, dissipated. So now, the constitutional right for assembly is no longer available to people living in our country.
That's very dangerous.
Dangerous, absolutely dangerous. But now, let me just say that I see the parallels that happens here. Okay, when one of our daughters said that it's not going to happen because it's a country that doesn't have too many poor people. I mentioned to her that poor people will appear very soon. But on the other hand, I said, it doesn't take long to all of a sudden become from the democratic society to dictatorial society. And I brought example of fire in the Reichstag in Germany in 1933. It took democratically elected government of National Socialist Party of Adolf Hitler to become dictatorial after 1 day or 2 days from fire of Reichstag, because they got permission from Parliament of Germany at that time to actually to have emergency law where they were able to actually destroy all the communists in the country, putting them either to jail or to death, okay, as well as then socialists and some Catholics and other people. Of course, Jews were something like that. The Jews were obviously important to target for any authoritarian government. So all of this was happening because of one event, fire of Reichstag. Okay,
and it sounds familiar. They declared emergency measures.
Yes, exactly.
Doesn't it sound like what's going on right now?
The most current event that happened in the United States, when on January 6th, there was basically something event in the Capitol, when there was basically a joint session of the Congress, and that have become, and that particular event that actually create the authoritarian dictatorial regime of Joe Biden. We don't really Joe Biden will actually stay for long, because maybe Kamala Harris will become a first woman president of the United States. Now, we don't care about the United States that much. We do, but we have to worry about our own country. But let me tell you the parallels. The Soviet Union. The Soviet Union experienced the problem in 1930s. It was experiencing so-called spy mania, okay? They were just starting the propaganda about lots of spies that destroy the Soviet Union. The German spies or English spies or this spies or that spies, and everyone was asked to be snitching on these particular spies, okay? And let me tell you, snitching is very profitable business in the Soviet Union, because once you actually found some neighbor of yours that is having apartment and this and that, and you want that apartment, you just snitched on him, and all of a sudden his apartment is yours apartment. Huh? Isn't that great? Okay.
Wow.
And lots of other things that happening at that time. So it's very interesting to have that snitching, encouraged by the government of Doug Ford. So, and those are the kind of things. The other interesting things that happened in the Soviet Union is not yet happening to this country, but obviously it will. It will.
Don't tell them.
No, just a second. Okay, the idea behind that is we believe that there is a certain things about justice. Justice is a system, okay? And we actually have the justice that justice system that is significantly different from what was in the Soviet Union. If you actually being indicted by whatever, some kind of a possible crime, you actually be presented in a court of your peers, okay? There's no such thing in the Soviet Union.
No.
Okay, in the Soviet Union, there was a judge and two so-called co-judges. They were just basically elected, and they basically, not elected, but they assigned to be sitting next to the judge. They were not having any kind of a judicial education. There's nothing at all. They just basically supported the judge. But there was no 12 jury, 12-man jury, none whatsoever. So it was very easy to manipulate. And it started way back at the time of the Russian Revolution, when it was basically the courts were replaced with the so-called troika. 3 people were judging anyone for anything. And of course, counter-revolutionary activity was a major something that would be judged and say, okay, you are actually to be killed, okay, whatever. So those are the kind of things like that. So this is happening, and it will be soon in our country if we don't resist. Okay? Now, election system. Election system in the Soviet Union was extremely interesting because you actually have only one party to vote. You have election, you have to choose from one. That's a great thing, okay? And how do they actually made that every time they advertise in the papers that people voted, 98% or 99% voted? How did they do that? It's very simple. Because there was a shortage of everything in the stores. If you come to the voting point, you will be able to buy, and that's only if you voted, okay? 1 kilo of oranges, which otherwise you cannot buy anywhere, okay? Or you buy a half a kilo of salami per person or something like that, which is not available in the stores. Like, it's basically bribing people to come to the voting point. Now, I know a little bit about the voting system because I volunteered at some point in time in my life one election, and I was a very minor kind of a participant in that. Well, but I just learned quite interesting things. That in the Soviet system of elections, you cannot vote against. How you cannot vote against? For instance, if you have a bulletin that says this is the person that you can choose, and if you scratch that, and after that it goes to the election committee, and they look at that and say, well, this person probably didn't like the name of that person. He didn't vote against it. He didn't like the name of that person. If you cross the whole bulletin like cross, you didn't like the shape of the bulletin. Okay. So it was always either considered to be spoiled or it was considered to be positive. Okay? So that's why 98% of the population was voted always in the Soviet Union for, not against. Great elective systems. Okay? Now they changed that, but it's still somewhat similar in a way. So the reality is we might have experienced the same way. Okay? So this is where we're going. If we actually continue on the path to socialism. And the socialism that we actually experiencing in this part of the world will actually be very mixed with the fascism, okay? Because fascism is a term which some people don't understand, but it's basically very dictatorial. There's no democracy whatsoever involved in the fascism. Okay, you don't have the vote. Okay, so all of this is what we see experiencing right now. And as far as the daily experiences that I have, I decided since back in June, I would be actually doing exercises, okay? My gym is closed, and so I just doing my exercises outside or walking on the trails, okay, in our city. And I walking in this hat that actually says, well, 99.9% is survival rate from COVID-19. And I'm saying this is a good news because gloom and doom that we're experiencing, that is pushed on us from propaganda, from media, from all the newspapers, from TV and radio, has to be broken. Because how can you live? Because it forces a stress and anxiety and mental health issues and all kinds of things. And number of suicides tripled in this country compared to the previous year. Why? Because so much stress and anxiety. So why do we allow that? So I'm working, trying to share the good news. And let me tell you, some people meeting me on a trail, they say, oh, good, we like that. And I actually had an experience with two younger ladies that actually said to me, it is offensive button. It is offensive button. How can you do that? I said, what do you mean offensive? Well, because it's a serious disease. It's a deadly disease. I said, well, okay, I understand deadly disease. But we all living on this earth eventually will die. Yes. Okay? And some die early, some ill, whatever. But what do you mean it offensive? Well, because it destroys the idea of deadly virus. Okay, I said, okay, well, if you are so afraid of deadly virus, why you are walking without masks? They decided not to answer my question. They don't care. I told them at the end, and there was a very short conversation. I said, well, we live so far in a free country. You could be feeling offended by anything and anyone. And I could be in this country still feeling that I can actually wear something like this, which is basically truth, because it's posted on Health Canada Health Canada site. So how can we live with people who are becoming so-called COVIDiots, okay? Because they actually don't look at any facts, don't look at any truth, okay? And that's the problem. Because if the people in general say, oh, we're scared, we have fear of this and fear of that and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to say, once you open your eyes and you see that it is not so deadly, it's much deadlier than the regular flu. If it is not much deadlier to a regular flu, why do we have to wear masks? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to have lockdowns? Look, behind that is simple thing, is Agenda 2030, which is making all of us eventually slaves. And if someone cares to look at Agenda 2030, at the so-called Great Reset, you would see that within 3 years or less, you will be out of your property. You would not have anything, because you will be poor, and you would have to give up your property, your anything, and you will be living on a dole of the government. And if that government decides that you are not to be trusted, that they easily can kick you out on the street. And if you are sitting on the streets, they will actually eventually kick you out into some kind of concentration camp that they actually would be calling very nicely, politically correct, re-educational camps. Re-educational camps is just like in China. Communist China has re-education camps, which people are sitting there and being really badly treated, very badly treated, because they want to do. Okay, now, when someone in the government claim that the hospitals are overwhelmed, we actually spending time digging into all data from health units of Ontario. We have 35 health units in Ontario, different districts, and we look at that, and there is no proof that any hospital is overwhelmed by COVID cases. But, there's very interesting, nobody says that mental health hospitals are overwhelmed. Mental health, not because of COVID infection, not of COVID infection, but actually mental health problem.
Because of the lockdowns.
Lockdowns, okay. So are we looking at something like that as a truth? No, nobody cares about truth, okay? And if someone ever read the book called 1984, 1984 book was written in late 50s, but it was dystopia that talked about something that would possibly happen. It did happen. It's now here.
It's happening right
It's
now.
now here. We'll live through it. Okay? Big Brother is watching you. Okay. So,
give people a little bit of an idea of your background, where you're born, you're growing up, that type of thing as well.
I was born in Moscow, okay, and lived generally most of my life of 33 years in that part of the Soviet Union. Eventually, I decided to apply for immigration, because I had to apply to immigration from the request from, actually invitation from my relatives in Israel. At that time, Israel didn't have any diplomatic relationship with the Soviet Union, so therefore we were being given a chance to live for unification, but we had to relinquish our Soviet citizenship. Meaning, we lost the citizenship of the Soviet Union, and by that action, we actually become stateless. Stateless, so no state was protecting us, so we were refugees, okay? So once 2 years later, we actually able to receive the permission to leave. We were given 20 days to make sure that we actually parted with the country, unless our permission of exit would be taken away from us. Okay, so we had to quickly dissolve anything that we had, give it to our friends and relatives and so on and so forth, and leave the country with a very limited means. Okay, because at that time the government of the Soviet Union said that every person that leaving country for good can have up to $100 per person. So $300 for the family of 3. And that was the whole thing that we left the Soviet Union with. Okay, luckily that we were met with Austria and then Italy, and some charity organizations took care of us and gave us possibility to survive until we received the permission to move to Canada. Okay, so our Canada experience was very good, though we couldn't settle in Toronto to begin with, because at that time Canadian consul in Rome, Italy, told us, young man, go west, because in Toronto you wouldn't find a job. You're an engineer, your wife is an engineer, there is no jobs for engineers in Toronto, in Ontario whatsoever. Go west, young man. So Calgary was our place, and we stayed there for 10 years. Now, the interesting part is that as an electronics engineer, I was able to quite quickly find relatively quickly, within 2 or 3 months, I was able to find the job according to my education and my experience. And I was working for the companies that give me the chance to actually exercise that. That particular thing was interesting, because once I started communicating with my friends who lived still in, who still stayed in Moscow, and they told me, Felix, you made a mistake to leave the Soviet Union, because now we have increase in our salary, 20%. 20%. Okay, that was basically barely a sustenance. Okay, something like that. That engineer or senior engineer was making money in Moscow, and I replied to them at that time that unfortunately, yes, I don't have any kind of a increase in my salary, but I'm making here $1,300, and that's a junior salary. Junior salary. Okay, so anyway, so that is a difference. Okay, the difference is that I was not called anywhere a senior engineer. I was basically a senior technical service representative, and that was enjoyable, because I was doing exactly the same work that I was doing in Moscow as a senior engineer for medical electronic medical department from famous medical university, and I was doing the same job, but I was much freer. Okay, and I could do anything. I could learn anything. I was sent to many different training courses in United States and Canada to learn more about technology and things like that. So it was great experience. Great experience. Now, and I was able to travel. Now, because one of the things that what happened when I was leaving, we were not allowed to actually, we were not allowing ourselves to tell our friends, even some relatives, that we're planning to leave the country, because we would be immediately ostracized, and we will be considered person non grata in every society. So we have to keep it quiet. But eventually, it has to go out. And some of my friends say, Felix, don't you understand? We live now in a better world. We live now in a better world. We are not getting to go to jail if we actually say some kind of a joke about the government, about the party. Okay? We are not forced to go to the so-called May demonstrations, which were basically considered to be expression of the people, because everyone was going in these particular May demonstrations with the lozungs, placards saying, people and party united. People and party united. If you didn't go to that, you may actually lose your bonus for the year. That's how we were united at that time, okay? So we were in Canada, if we wanted to go to some kind of a celebration, a demonstration or whatnot, we would either go or not go. Nobody actually forced us. Nobody was given, oh, if you do not do, phew, behave. Okay. So now we're actually in situation that it could be done. It could be done because we have now live in technological world where everything is controlled by media, by internet, by this, by that. And who knows what is going to happen with someone who is a dissident, who is expressing different ideas. Once you express different ideas, first of all, you will be shut off. Secondly, you will be taken off to so-called re-education camps. We're already building them in Ontario.
Right.
Okay, now, people, be prepared. You become free and going into whatever.
How many million Soviet citizens got sent to these camps?
Wait,
isn't the Gulag Archipelago all about this?
Okay,
They don't know that.
when
It could be millions.
when a Nobel Prize winner Alexander Solzhenitsyn published the book called Gulag Archipelago. Okay, it was basically a story about all of this. It was based on facts, based on everything. But first of all, it could not be published in the Soviet Union directly, so it first was published in the West, and then eventually was published over there. But while it was first published in the Western publishing houses, in the Soviet newspapers, it was basically statements like this. This is a miner from this city. Okay, I'm whatever miner, whatever this, or I'm whatever.
They were forced to denounce it.
Letter from that person to newspaper Pravda was saying, I never read Solzhenitsyn. But I know that he is a traitor. He has to be put in jail. This is voice of people. Voice of people. Like, look, these people are not educated, but rather indoctrinated. So, propaganda. You know, in the Soviet Union, propaganda was not a bad word. People who actually were members of the party had a book that, some religious people have a Bible. These people had a book of propaganda. Okay, so it was basically a way of actually learning how to stress the ideas, sort of push the ideas of the party to the people otherwise.
It's like marketing.
Yes, okay, so that the propaganda was. It was basically once a month. It's like a educational little thing that every party member had to have it, okay? Otherwise you are not right, okay? So this is the kind of things like that we lived, okay? Now, if some people ask me, hey, was it so bad in the Soviet Union while I lived there? Well, people adapt to anything. People adapt to anything. But let me tell you, if looking at history lessons, okay, repressive regimes used repressive organizations in the Soviet Union to actually do something with the people who are not right thinking, according to their idea of what is right thinking. Okay, so repressive organizations were led by different people, and in a course of 15 years, the leaders of this repressive organization, KGB, were actually lasted only for 3-4 years, after which they disappeared from the face of the earth. Because it basically, you've done your stuff, out you go, and you disappear. We can just basically read the history, and Yagoda was changed with Yezhov was changed with someone else, Bakunin, and then eventually Beria was actually Lavrenti Beria, that was after the war, World War II. Anyway, so all of these people were repressed after they kept repressing some other people. Okay, so who knows what is going to be with the people that working right now in police and actually doing repression, starting repression.
Do you think we're going to see the same sort of paranoia, and the politicians are going to start going after each other the same way that they did in the Soviet Union?
Yes. Okay. if you look at the history of French Revolution, same thing is going to repeat itself here, because at some point in time, the leaders of revolution will become traitors, and they will become killed. Okay. So we don't know what is going to happen to current leaders, but they are waiting for a bad end.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much, Felix. We can do another interview in a few months, and hopefully we have some new things happening.
He was still alive.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.